Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu, and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at EX02, and even though EX2 is a smaller set than your usual set, there's still lots of new and powerful cards to build and iterate some new and existing decks with. And today's deck is going to be a new iteration on Titamon, except this time it's including Gulfmon for some extra control elements to try to limit and reduce the opponent's hand size, just because Digimon is a game where we like to draw lots of cards, and even though yes, it is affecting us, we are a discard based deck and we want to discard cards anyway, so it's going to harm us less than it's going to harm the opponent. But for the most part, we're just trying to utilize Titamon and go into like an OTK type strategy to be able to try to beat the opponent out. So without further ado, onto the deck. Starting off with the Digitamon, I'm going to be running one copy of DemiMeramon, so you could kind of go back and forth on if you want this to be the main or the sub. It doesn't really matter, just because its on delete ability states that we get to draw one card and discard a card, feeding into the engine of the deck. And then the main Digitamon of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Tsunomon, so this is the BT06 version of Tsunomon, and this is just helping us when we're discarding by allowing us to draw an extra card, so that way the discard isn't really discarding and it's turning it more into eluding, similar to what DemiMeramon is trying to do anyway. Next, onto the rookies, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Gazimon. So Gazimon is just the anti-meta card, where we're just trying to use this card to reduce and limit some of the opponent's actions, acting as a floodgate. So what this card is trying to do is stop the opponent from gaining memory, except by their tamer effects, limiting the memory manipulating shenanigans that they want to do or can do. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Guilmon. So this is the BT05 version of Guilmon, and we're utilizing this card as a good combo piece, so when we're comboing off with our Titamon's OTK strategy by utilizing his on-delete ability to gain a memory to make our plays memory efficient when we're going to be utilizing this card. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Goblimon. So Goblimon is going to be one of the primary inheritable abilities we want to use, just because it's going to help DP boost our Digimon, which purple usually has a hard time with. So when we're going to be trashing one card from our hand due to one of our card effects, then this Digimon's going to gain a plus 2000 DP. This triggers once per turn, but it's still pretty good at trying to make our Digimon a little bit stronger than they normally would be. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gabumon. So this is the starter deck version of Gabumon, and this card is going to be another engine card for the deck, just because its inheritable ability states that when we attack with this card, not limited to once per turn, we get to draw 1 card from our deck and discard 1 card from our hand to, again, feed into the looting type engine that the deck wants to be playing around with. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Drakmon. So Drakmon is just to try to help fish out some of our combo pieces and grab back some of our options, because his on-play ability states that we could return 1 purple option card with a memory cost of 1 or 7 from our trash back to our hand. So if we do need to discard those options, then we have ways to be able to get them back. Next, onto the level 4s, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Ginkakumon. So we are going to play the promote package, and Ginkakumon is just a good card to play with that package, on top of the fact that it's still a solid inheritable ability that we want to try to utilize. Its inheritable ability is a when attacking ability, not limited to once per turn. We get to discard or trash 1 card from our hand to delete one of the opponent's level 3 Digimon, acting as some solid control for our higher stages to be utilizing on the opponent's low level Digimon. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Ginkakumon. So Ginkakumon is another piece of the promote package, and Ginkakumon is really good at helping with the memory efficiency of our cards. So he has this nice inheritable ability that states during your turn once per turn, when we trash a card from our hand due to one of our own card effects, then we get to gain 1 memory, again allowing us to be as efficient with our cards as we possibly can. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Ginkakumon Promote to round out the Promote package. So what this card is doing is we have the flexibility on being able to Digivolve it on top of a level 4 for 1, or Digivolve it on top of a level 3 for 2, and he has the Rush ability natively, so he could just be really aggressive when we're going to be playing him from our trash, or when we potentially Digivolve into him. Then he has a nice on-play ability that we could take advantage of when we're trying to res him, where we get to place one Ginkakumon and or Ginkakumon from our trash underneath this card as Digivolution sources in any order, and then if we placed at least 2 cards with this ability, then we get to draw a card and gain a memory, so that way we could again try to extend some of our plays and make some of our plays even more powerful, especially since we then could trigger the when attacking ability of Ginkakumon to be able to trigger Ginkakumon to gain even more memory and try to control the field that way. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gazimon Scatter Mode. So Gazimon Scatter Mode is still just that good of a card for virtually almost any purple deck to use just because of how powerful its engine is. So it has a nice on-delete ability where we get to draw 3 cards and then discard 2 cards. So it's just a lot of draw and a lot of setup for our trash for something very cheap and easy to play. And then to round out our level 4s, I'm going to be running Gazimon at 1 because, well, he's limited to 1 and he's still that good of a card when we see him just because when we discard him from our hand, then if we have a scatter mode in our trash, we get to play him for free. So this is just really good at setting up our Ginkakumon or just getting an extra free body out. Then on top of that, he has a secondary ability where during your turn, for each Gazimon scatter mode that's in our trash, this Digimon gains plus 2000 DP to make him even stronger than he normally would be. And then as far as our level 5s go, I'm going to be running 4 copies of BlackWarGrowlmon. So BlackWarGrowlmon is a really good card to help with the OTK package and bundle with how the deck is trying to play. So it has this nice main ability that allows us to use Digiburst 3, so we get to put 3 inheritable sources from underneath them into our trash to be able to play a purple level 3 Digimon from our trash for free, but we won't get any of its on-play effects. That's okay, because the primary card we want to res is going to be our Guilmon, but at worst we could res any of our other level 3s, and the only one it kind of affects is Drakmon, where we won't get his on-play effect. But this combos with his inheritable ability when we're going to be going into our level 6s, primarily our Titamon, because his inheritable ability is a when attacking ability where once per turn we get to delete one of our other Digimon, primarily the Digimon we just rezzed off of his Digiburst ability, to unsuspend this Digimon to allow whatever level 6 we're going to be using to be able to multi-attack. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Rebellymon. So Rebellymon is going to be the primary defensive tool for the deck because he has this nice when Digivolving ability where we get to trash out 1 card from our hand to give this Digimon the blocker and retaliation ability. So that just allows us to try to shut off a lot of the opponent's potential aggro, and we could extend this ability to our level 6s, making him just a really good defensive tool for the deck. And then the last level 5 of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Orochiman. So Orochiman is in the deck mainly as discard fodder, just because his only main ability is when he's discarded from our hand due to one of our card effects, then we get to draw a card, making it so we're not actually really discarding a card, and we could keep our hand size as full as we possibly can. Then on top of that, he has a nice inheritable ability if we actually do want to climb the stages with him, because he is a pretty okay level 5 Digimon sitting at 8000 DP to be slightly aggressive with. But his inheritable ability states that when we attack once per turn, we get to trash 1 card from our hand to gain a memory to be able to help with the overall tempo of the deck. And then, as far as our level 6s go, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Titamon. So Titamon is still going to be the primary level 6 that we want to be utilizing, just because of how powerful we can make this card. So he has a nice when Digivolving ability, where we get to discard 1 card from our hand to be able to res one of our Digimon that's level 4 or lower, which is pretty good considering the primary targets we want to res is probably going to be either our Gazimon Scatter Mode to extend our draw engine, or it's going to be our Ginkakumon Promote to be able to utilize Promote's on play ability as the primary res target. We also could res level 3s if we really needed to, but those are your 2 primary targets. Then what this card is doing is he also has a nice secondary ability where during your turn, once per turn, when a card is trashed from our hand due to one of our own card effects, then this Digimon gains plus 2000 DP and security attack plus 1. So this is just what's allowing us to try to OTK with him, because when we go up into him, we're going to trigger his secondary ability off of his first ability, and we could pair that up with BlackWarGrowlmon to know that we're going to always have a Digimon on the field to be able to sacrifice, to be able to unsuspend, so that way we could swing, get 2 checks off at 14, potentially 16k, and then BlackWarGrowlmon will unsuspend after deleting one of our Digimon that we just rezzed off of either of their abilities, and then swing again for another 2 checks, making Titamon still a pretty strong card to utilize. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Nidhogmon, so we're almost never going to want to actually go up into Nidhogmon, and like Orochiman, we're going to be using him mostly as discard fodder, just because he has this ability for when he's trashed from our hand due to one of our card effects, to be able to give us a memory, again, helping with our overall efficiency. But if you do need to go up into him, he's pretty good at trying to control some of the opponent's Digimon, by allowing us to trash 1 card from our hand to delete one of the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. And then the last level 6 of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Gulfmon. So Gulfmon is the brand new inclusion, acting as some more control, but this time for the opponent's hand. Digimon is a card game where you're going to have a tendency to draw lots of cards and have a hand of easily more than 5 cards, and this card is going to act as a good equalizer to use to limit some of the opponent's actions, just because when we Digivolve up into them, all players have to trash cards from their hand until they have 5 cards left. So we don't necessarily face as big of a downfall just because we already want to discard cards anyway, and we're purple, so we always want to have a large trash to utilize as a secondary resource. Then he has a nice secondary ability where during your turn once per turn, when one of our cards is trashed from our hand, then we get to unsuspend one of our Digimon, again allowing us to try to be extra aggressive with being able to unsuspend our Digimon. And then the last Digimon and only level 7 of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Omnimon Zwart. So Omnimon Zwart is another really fantastic card for this deck to use, just because of all of the synergy that we could potentially line up, and we could even shape the deck to be a little bit more Zwart focused. So what this card is doing is when we Digivolve into him, we get to trash the top 3 cards of our deck, then we get to play up to 2 purple or black Digimon that have a play cost of 8 or less from our trash for free, which is really good just because it's spawning those extra bodies that we could then do various different things with, depending on what those bodies are. Then on top of that, he has a nice when attacking ability where we get to return a level 6 Digimon from its Digivolution source to be able to delete one of the opponent's unsuspended Digimon that has a play cost of 12 or less, again acting as some more control that the deck wants. And then as far as the options go, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Demonic Disaster. So Demonic Disaster is a fantastic aggression tool just because it's another instance of us being able to unsuspend our Digimon, so that way we could swing as many times as we possibly can in a single turn. So what we're doing with this card is it has a low cost of 1 for our Dracmon to be able to grab back if we need him to, where we get to delete one of our Digimon to unsuspend one of our purple Digimon. So this doesn't work with Zwart, but it does work with any of our other Digimon, making it just a really strong aggression tool, on top of the fact that it actually does have a decent security ability to act as basically a security Digimon, where we get to play a level 3 purple Digimon from our trash onto the field for free, but its on-play abilities don't activate it, so it's still good at just trying to grab back something to have extra pressure on the field. Next, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Calling from the Darkness. So, Calling from the Darkness is another 1-cost purple option card for our Trackmon, but we're using this card just to try to help delete some of our Digimon, or at worst, if we don't have any Digimon on our field to delete, just try to grab back what we need. So, its main ability states that we get to delete one of our Digimon, then we get to return up to 2 of our purple Digimon from our trash back to our hand. So we could grab back some cards that we want to try to discard, or cards that we actually need in order to help with what we're trying to accomplish. Then its security ability just allows us to add it to our hand, so we could use whenever we need it. And then the last option card of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Win Rate 60%. So win rate 60% is just to help with the overall tempo for the deck. We could play this card ignoring its color requirements as long as we have a Tamer in play, allowing us to actually use the card, and it has a really good main ability where the next time one of our Digimon digivolves, we get to trash one Digimon card from our hand as the same color as the digivolving Digimon to reduce the memory cost of that Digivolution by 4. So we could use this in combination with going up into our Titamon or Gulfmon to make them even more efficient to not be able to pass the turn when we want to try to combo off. Then the fact that we are still trashing a card from our hand could trigger some of our various other abilities to make our Digimon even more effective or powerful, and its security ability also just lets us add this card into our hand to use whenever we need it. And then the last card of the deck is going to be the only Tamer of the deck, and that's going to be 3 copies of Matt Ishida. So Matt Ishida is going to be the memory fixing Tamer, where if our memory is ever less than 3, he'll just hard set it to 3, so that way we can make our plays as efficient as we possibly can, while also having a nice on-play ability where we get to return 1 purple Digimon or option from our trash back into our hand, again, to try to reuse whatever we feel like we need to use. And then because we are purple, purple just has lots of good high synergy with various other tech and tools. There's still just a lot of different ways that we could customize and edit the deck to our liking. So if we wanted to, we could just run a vanilla 2-drop level 3, just because if we are going to try to sacrifice it, it's just an easy card to hard play to be able to sacrifice right away, or just to get an easy body out to be able to digivolve right away with. And then we have Labramon and by extension the BT02 Gabumon to be able to help with the deck's discard and draw engine, because that's what the deck is all about and what we're trying to do with the deck. Then we do have another floodgate for us to think about utilizing in the form of Psychmon to stop the opponent from reducing their play costs. We do have the brand new Dobermon from EX02 that we could play, just because if you do want to try to play Alice McCoy, then it just allows us to play this card even cheaper than it normally would be, on top of the fact that if you want to run a little bit of self-mill based synergy, you could think about leaning the deck into that direction as well, on top of the fact that even if you're not, we could use this card to try to grab back our purple Tamers in case we discarded a purple Tamer, or one just winds up in our trash. Then we do have Devimon and other tempo tools in our level 4 slots to use just because of the cheap evolution, and we could use this card as a potential blocker. Then we do have Lady Devimon as another really good way to draw lots of cards and help discard lots of cards to trigger our various abilities when we digivolve up into her, and when we use one of our option cards to try to combo off with, then we get to try to delete one of the opponent's level 3 Digimon, making her another really good card to use, on top of the fact that she already has 8000 DP, being a slightly more aggressive level 5 Digimon in terms of stats. But if you wanted another discard fodder card, then you could run Skullgreymon to add underneath one of our purple Digimons when we discard him to give them the retaliation ability, and he could also be another aggressive level 5 Digimon when we don't want to digivolve him to our level 6s, just because we could discard a card and have him gain plus 3000 DP to make him a very strong level 5. And if you want to try to lean the deck in a little bit more of the Zwart direction, then we do have Mephistomon as a really good card for his on-play ability to draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards, which Zwart can set up for free when we digivolve up into him, and he has the same inheritable ability as Orochiman to help us gain some tempo. When we attack, we could discard a card for extra memory. And then we also do have other level 7s in the deck that you could run. If you're going to be running a little bit more self-mill, then you could include Beelzemon Blast Mode. We could run something like Zwart Defeat as some extra security threats. So we could even run Millenniumon for some extra control. There's just a whole bunch of different things that we could do with our level 7s, depending on the direction you want to take the deck in. And then we do have a slew of different options that we could run. So if you wanted to, you could run Underworld's Call just as another discard fodder card, just because it will draw a card when we discard, and it can help res our level 4 Digimon, which is pretty nice because we have some decent level 4 Digimon we could use, namely the Promote package. Then we do have a slew of different removal options. So we do have Fly Bullet, we have Trump Sword, we have Death's Claw, we have Pandemonium Flame. There's just a lot of different ones that you could use if you want to add some extra control into the deck in option form. And then we do have a whole bunch of other memory boosts that we could think about utilizing in the form of Purple Memory Boost, Grave Memory Boost, and Mist Memory Boost to round out what we could possibly try to do with some of our various other options. Then as far as Tamers go, like I stated before, if you wanted to with Doberman, you could run Alice McCoy, and Alice McCoy is actually a really good card to help us Digivolve from our level 5s to our level 6s. And then if you wanted to run some other Tamers, again, take it more into a Zwart-based direction, we could run Ty and Matt to be able to try to give him security attack +1, which could combo with our Gulfmon to be able to unsuspend him if we do have both out on the field at the same time. And this card could also just help us gain some additional memory for more powerful plays. And then you even have something as nice as Analog Youth to help round out what the deck could possibly do, acting as another consistency tool for the deck, just because we get to look at 3 cards from the top of our deck, add a Digimon among them into our hand, and trash the rest to help set up our trash. We're not really trying to set up our trash, which is why I don't feel like we need Analog Youth, but he's still a good card to have for that consistency. But that just goes to show that there's still just a lot of different things that we could do with not only just purple as a whole, but incorporating some of the new cards in with some of the old cards to make it more powerful things possible. And I do think that even though this isn't going to be like the premier purple deck, it's still going to be a really fun and cheap and efficient purple deck to make it nonetheless, all depending on what you're actually trying to do with the deck and how you want to set it up. All depending on the actual tech and tools you want to incorporate into the deck. And I do think because it's purple, it does have lots of room for flexibility and customization to be able to make some really powerful plays possible. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.